There are 24 cells in Jackson County Jail. Small town lockup, built in the 1950s. Creaky, concrete, always too cold or too hot. I've worked here for 12 years night shift. Routine never changes. Head count at 9 p.m. Cell checks at midnight and 4 a.m. Lights out by 10. No exceptions until last December, December 3rd, 2023. Inmate, Kenneth Rowe, age 38. Picked up on a DUI and resisting arrest. He was combative but manageable. Booked and locked in cell 14. By 2 a.m., he was gone. There was no forced entry, no opened cell, no malfunction. The door was locked. The camera feed, static from 1:57 to 2:04 a.m. The log sheet showed no movement. No key withdrawals, no perimeter breach, but the cell was empty. And left behind on the center of the bunk, a child's hand-drawn picture of a jail cell. Stick figures inside, one had no face, one looked just like Rowe. We filed it, wrote it up as a technical escape. Media never picked it up, but we all knew Rowe didn't get out. He was taken. It got worse the following week. December 10th, inmate Loretta Banks. Drug possession, very quiet, barely spoke, always stared at the security camera in her cell. At 3:23 a.m., Officer Nash did the check. Cell locked, Loretta sitting on her bunk, hands folded. At 3:37 a.m., next round, gone. No sign of entry, no sound, nothing. Except this. On the floor where she had been sitting was an old, faded Polaroid photo of a woman standing inside cell 14, wearing the same uniform as our jail staff, except we had no record of her ever working here. On the back of the photo, she watches from inside now. I asked my supervisor to shut cell 14 down. He said no, not enough space. 2 days later, we put a third inmate in there, a man named Elias Sticks Harper. He joked all night about the ghost cell. We laughed it off. At 3 a.m., he started banging on the door, screaming. When we got there, he was curled into the corner, eyes wide. "It's on the other side of the wall," he whispered. "It looks like me, but it's not me. It's waiting to trade places." He begged to be moved. We transferred him to cell 5, and for 1 week he was fine, until the morning shift went to wake him. Cell 5 was locked, lights on, and in his place was a duplicate jail uniform folded neatly on the bunk. Inside the shirt pocket, a torn piece of paper that simply read, 14. I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared, not at first, because I kept seeing cell 14 every time I closed my eyes. But not the real one. In my dreams, the cell was massive. A maze of rusted bars and flickering lights that stretched for miles. Every door had a mirror instead of a window, and behind each mirror was me. The first night it happened, I woke up standing in my hallway, fully dressed in my uniform, keys in hand. I hadn't sleepwalked since I was a kid. The second night, I woke up inside my car, parked in the jail lot. 3:14 a.m. That day, I requested maintenance blueprints for the jail. It took some pulling, but I got the original architectural plans from 1955. I traced the block of cell 14 and found nothing. There was no cell 14. Cells 1 through 13 were marked. Then, a solid wall, yet it's there. We walk past it every night. We lock people inside it. So how? I asked Officer Nash if he'd ever looked inside 14 without an inmate inside. He nodded slowly. Last time it was empty, I stood inside for a minute, just to see, and the lights turned off. I swear only in that cell. All the others stayed lit. When they came back on, the door was closed. I never touched it. That night I made a decision. After rounds, I entered cell 14. Alone, flashlight, radio digital recorder. First thing I noticed, the air was wrong. Thick, too still, smelled faintly of mold, and something metallic. Blood, maybe. Second, the temperature dropped fast. I placed the recorder on the bunk and started talking. Cell 14 Mendez. Alone? Row 4 a.m. I waited. Nothing. Then the door slammed behind me. The lock clicked. My radio went to static. I turned toward the mirror above the sink. Only it wasn't my reflection. It was me, yes, same uniform. But he wasn't moving like I was. He was smiling. I stepped closer and he stepped back. Out of frame, but I hadn't moved. I grabbed the door, banged hard. "Open this damn thing." Then I looked back, and the reflection was back, but this time he had no face. Just smooth, blank skin stretched tight across a skull. I don't remember blacking out, but I woke up in the infirmary, surrounded by staff. They said they found me inside cell 14, unconscious, still standing. No injuries, no explanation. Later that day, I checked the digital recorder. The last 30 seconds were just my voice repeating something I didn't remember saying. "Let me out." I don't want to go in. Let me out. I don't want to go in, over and over. And then a whisper, in a voice that sounded just like mine. It opens inward. You just have to be hollow enough to fit. After the incident in cell 14, I asked for a transfer. It was denied. They said what I experienced was psychosomatic disassociation due to chronic fatigue, standard bureaucratic denial. But Nash knew he wouldn't even walk past the cell anymore. So I went deeper. I contacted a retired architect who helped design the 1986 expansion of the jail. Name Harold McCready. I asked him about cell 14. His voice trembled. That wasn't one of ours. We numbered them to avoid that one. We skipped 14 on purpose. It's an old prison thing, superstition unlucky. But here, it started before we even laid concrete. I asked, started how? He hung up. 2 days later, I read in the paper, McCready was found dead in his basement. No sign of trauma. Clutched in his hand was a Jackson County Corrections badge. With my name on it, I tried resigning. No answer, no rejection either. The system just didn't acknowledge the request. Every night, my keycard still worked. Every night, the log system showed my arrival and departure, even on days I stayed home. And cell 14? Still in use, still taking them. The last inmate was just a 19-year-old petty thief caught stealing copper wiring. His name doesn't matter, because when we checked his cell the next morning, it was empty. Locked and on the pillow, a perfectly folded copy of my uniform, badge and all. That night, I took bolt cutters and chains and sealed cell 14 shut myself, welded the door closed. Wrote a warning in red paint across it. Do not open. Not a cell, a door. The next day, cell 14 was open again, clean. Waiting, then came the final straw. Nash didn't show for shift. I called, no answer. I went to his place, no signs of struggle. Just an empty uniform on his couch. And scrawled in dust on the TV screen, I'm not me anymore. I gave up, walked into cell 14 on my own terms. Locked the door behind me, sat on the bunk, and waited. The lights flickered, the air turned thick. I stared at the mirror, and finally, it changed. My reflection stepped out, wearing my skin, my uniform, my voice. It smiled and walked through the bars. Out the door, I banged on the mirror, screamed. No one came, because I was now inside, looking out. Route 17, specifically the stretch between mile marker 91 and Old Cutter Road, is one of those places. It was early February when it happened. Cold, moonless, dead quiet. I was running solo that night, cruising eastbound on 17, when dispatch crackled through. Unit 241, routine patrol check. Any movement on Cutter Road? I thumbed the mic. Negative, just me and the ghosts out here. It was meant as a joke, but my voice didn't carry much humor. The moment I said it, I noticed the road ahead, empty seconds ago, had someone standing in the middle of the lane. A girl. She stood barefoot in the dark, wearing a torn white dress that looked soaked from the waist down. Her long hair clung to her shoulders, damp and tangled. She wasn't moving, not trying to run, just standing there staring straight at my cruiser. I slammed the brakes and cut the sirens. She didn't flinch. I stepped out slowly, hand near my holster but not drawn. Her skin was pale, almost gray-blue under the red and blue of my lights. The air around her looked heavy, like heat waves, but cold. Miss, are you hurt? I called out, no answer. I tried again, stepping closer. I'm Officer Garrison. Can you tell me your name? That's when she finally spoke. Her voice was thin, like wind through cracked glass. Don't go to the house, Officer Garrison. I froze. I hadn't said my name. No badge flash, no visible ID. She said it like she knew me. Not guessed, knew. My chest tightened. The hairs on my neck stood on end. How do you know who I am? I asked. She blinked slowly, eyes widening like she was struggling to remember something painful. Then, you won't find them alive. Before I could speak again, my radio crackled violently. 241, we've got a 1016 domestic disturbance. Farmhouse off Old Cutter Road. Caller disconnected. I turned to glance at the GPS screen less than a mile ahead. When I turned back to her, she was gone. Not ran, not ducked into the woods, just vanished. I drew my flashlight and scanned the sides of the road, the woods, the ditch. Nothing. No movement, no tracks. The dirt was dry, the road was empty. I told myself maybe she ran when I wasn't looking. Maybe my mind filled in blanks it shouldn't have. But deep down, I knew better. I got back in the cruiser and headed for the farmhouse. 10 minutes later, I pulled up to a rundown property at the end of a gravel path, Weather-beaten siding, porch lights swinging in the wind, door slightly ajar. One truck in the driveway, still warm. I called in backup but was too far out for a quick response. Protocol said to wait, but something about the silence felt final. I approached with caution, weapon drawn. Inside, the house smelled of old wood, mildew, and something sour beneath it. A clock ticked loudly in the kitchen. 2 bodies, male and female, late 30s, both seated at the dining table, unmoving. I stepped closer. Blood pooled at their feet. Entry wounds, clean, no sign of struggle. Both were shot through the temple. The coroner ruled them dead less than an hour before I arrived, which meant the food was still warm, because someone else had just been there, and they were gone. By the time backup arrived, a deputy named Collins and a state crime scene unit, the scene was still untouched. I kept thinking about the third plate, about the girl, about the fact that there were no tracks, no prints, no sign that anyone but the victims had ever been in that house, except for the handprint in the dust. Child-sized, alone. I gave my statement, didn't mention the girl at first. Didn't want to sound insane, but I couldn't sleep that next night. My thoughts kept drifting back to that moment on the road, how she knew my name, how she warned me. So I dug deeper. I drove back to Cutter Road during daylight. The old farmhouse had been taped off and guarded overnight, but what I was looking for was outside. About 50 yards east of the house, I noticed a faint trail that led into the tree line. Looked like an old footpath overgrown with brambles and moss. I followed it for 20 minutes until I reached a burned-out foundation, a house long gone. Only the stone remains and part of a staircase going nowhere. There on the back wall, barely visible beneath soot and ivy, I saw it. A small scorched mirror frame, blackened and cracked, but still intact. The glass inside had long since shattered, but there were scratches all around the edges, deep claw-like grooves. Next to it, etched faintly in the stone, was a name. Cassidy Ann Jenkins, 2003. And under that, the girl who disappeared twice. I didn't know what that meant, but the local sheriff's office did. When I brought it up, Collins went pale. He pulled me aside after the briefing and said, "You don't want to chase that rabbit, Tyler." But I pushed, and he told me. In 2003, a girl named Cassidy Jenkins went missing from that very farmhouse, the one that had burned. She was 14, same description, long dark hair, white dress. Her parents were found dead at the dinner table, shot, just like the couple I found last week. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Same handprint on the floor, same third plate of food. Cassidy's body was never found. Locals said she'd been seen weeks later, walking Route 17 barefoot at night. But every time an officer responded, she vanished before they arrived. Until the case went cold. Here's the part that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. The family I found, the couple from last week, the woman's name was Elaine Jenkins. She was Cassidy's younger sister, and the man, her husband. They'd just inherited the property 6 months ago and were planning to rebuild the old house. That night, I stayed late at the station, reviewing old case files. Collins brought me a folder someone had buried deep in evidence storage. Inside, photos from 2003, photos of the original farmhouse before the fire, photos of the kitchen table, 2 bodies, 3 plates, and one image, blurry but unmistakable, of a handprint in dust, identical to the one I found. I flipped to the last page, a faded black and white still from an old VHS patrol dashcam. In the image, a girl stands in the middle of Route 17. Same dress, same hair. The timestamp, 3:07 a.m. 20 years ago, to the minute. I got home that night around 2:45 a.m., disturbed, exhausted, paranoid. I parked the cruiser in my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat in silence. Then my dashcam started recording, on its own. I hadn't touched it. There was no power to the cruiser. But I heard it click on and the small screen lit up. I looked. There, in the corner of the screen, through the rear window, a girl stood at the edge of my yard. Soaked dress, bare feet, long tangled hair, just watching. I turned around instantly, but she was gone. I checked the yard, the road. Nothing, only a single wet footprint on my back porch. I called Collins, told him everything. His voice was quiet on the other end. "I believe you," he said, "because it happened to me too." Collins and I met the next morning. He brought coffee in silence. Then, without a word, handed me a small flash drive. "From the old archives," he said. "This was never logged officially. I took it, knowing I wouldn't like what I'd see. And I didn't. The footage was from 2005, 2 years after Cassidy's disappearance. A rookie officer named Dale Merrow had parked near the same stretch of Route 17, mile marker 91, after a report of a girl walking barefoot in the middle of the road. The footage showed him exiting the cruiser and shining a light into the woods, then static. When the video returned, Dale was inside the patrol car, sweating, shaking, and sobbing. He whispered, "She looked like my sister." But it wasn't her. Her mouth was wrong. Then the screen glitched again. Dale turned the camera toward the passenger seat. Empty. Then slowly, it turned to the rearview mirror. And there she was, Cassidy, eyes black, mouth wide and silent, blood dripping from her chin. He screamed. The footage ended. Merrow resigned the next day. Never spoke publicly. Disappeared a year later. "Do you think she's trying to reach out?" I asked Collins. He shook his head. "No, I think she's trying to replace someone." That word stuck with me, replace. Over the next few days, I avoided Route 17. I drove alternate roads. I kept mirrors covered in my apartment. I left lights on. Still, I heard her, in the static of my radio, in the whispers from the back seat, in my dreams. "You were supposed to help me." Then the phone call, private number. No caller ID, static at first. Then a voice. Young female. "Familiar, you saw me." Then silence. I knew what I had to do. I returned to the ruins of the original farmhouse. It was dusk, sky bleeding orange through the trees. I walked the overgrown path again, alone, until I reached the scorched mirror. This time I brought a lantern and a body cam. I set it on record. I stood in front of the blackened frame and said her name. "Cassidy." Nothing. I tried again. "I saw you. I believe you." And the air grew cold. Behind me, the woods darkened unnaturally fast. Like the sun had dropped all at once. My lantern flickered. The air felt thick, syrupy. I heard breathing. Soft, rhythmic, childlike. Then the voice. "You left me there." I turned and saw her. Not in the mirror, but beside it, barefoot. Wet head tilted slightly. Tears streaming. "Why didn't anyone come for me?" She whispered. "I was just a kid." My mouth was dry. I couldn't speak. Then she smiled, and it broke the illusion. Her eyes weren't eyes. Her mouth opened too wide, folding back like paper. Her skin rippled like heat over pavement. She lunged at me, but she didn't touch me. She went through me, and everything went dark. When I woke, it was morning. My body cam had 43 minutes of footage, most of it static, except for one frame. It showed me, standing in front of the mirror. But I wasn't alone. My reflection was smiling, and my real face wasn't. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've had moments I can't explain. I'll catch my reflection looking at me before I move. I hear knocking behind mirrors. I can't sleep more than an hour at a time. And last night, I saw her again. Not in the woods, not on the road, but inside my bathroom. She whispered one word. Trade. I don't patrol Route 17 anymore. I don't patrol at all. I left the force yesterday, and I'm writing this down, hoping someone sees it before I forget who I am. Because every time I blink, my reflection smiles a little wider, and I'm not sure I'll come back next time. People think nothing ever happens out here. Flatland, empty skies. Silence for miles, corn as far as the eye can see. But silence can hide things. And on the night of August 18th, 2019, I learned that some silences are alive. It started with a missing child. A boy named Caleb Whitaker, 8 years old. Last seen at 7:12 p.m. near his family's farmhouse on Highway 82. His older sister went inside to grab lemonade, came back out, and he was gone. No sound, no scream, no footprints, just his little red bicycle lying sideways at the edge of the cornfield. I was first on the scene. The family was shaken but calm. Farmer types, tough stock. You could tell they were the kind who didn't scare easy. But Mrs. Whitaker couldn't stop repeating one thing. He doesn't go in the corn. He's scared of the corn. The boy had been terrified of it since he was a toddler. Said he could hear whispers at night when the wind blew through the stalks. Said the cornfield talked back. At the time, I figured it was just imagination. A phase I'd heard weirder. But I was wrong. The sun went down. We called in volunteers, drones, dogs. Nothing turned up. At around 2 a.m., I stayed behind with one other officer, Deputy Blevins, to keep the perimeter secured until morning search teams arrived. Blevins suggested we take turns doing slow sweeps around the cornfield border with flashlights. I agreed. Figured we'd do a loop, call it, and pray the kid just wandered to a neighbor's barn. But as I walked along the western edge, I heard something strange, whispers. At first I thought it was wind. Then I stopped moving, and they kept going. I radioed Blevins, no answer. Static. Then faintly, "They're in the corn." I froze. That wasn't Blevins, it was a child's voice. The whisper came again. Anthony, not shouted, not screamed, whispered. Soft and low, like someone inches from my ear, only I was completely alone. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I turned back toward the cruiser, ready to radio base. That's when I saw it. Movement. A figure, maybe 4 feet tall, slipping into the rows of corn about 30 yards away. I raised my light, shouted, "Caleb!" No response, just rustling corn. Then stillness. I made a choice I still regret. I went in. I marked the edge of the row with my pocket knife, deep X into the wooden post, and entered. At first it was just corn, normal, rows as far as you could see, dirt path beneath me, stalks to each side. I swept my light left and right, calling the boy's name. "Caleb, it's Deputy Reyes. Your mom's worried." "Come out, buddy." No answer. But after about 30 feet in, everything changed. The air got cold, dead cold, and the corn began to sway, even though there was no wind. I could feel it shift, like the field itself was breathing. That's when I heard the voice again, but this time it was behind me. "He's not yours to find." I spun around, light trembling. No one. The field was silent again. I tried the radio. "Blevins, come in. I need your location. I'm inside the cornfield. Something's wrong." Static. Then, "Blevins can't hear you anymore." It was a woman's voice. Not familiar, not human. I started backing out, retracing my steps, following the line of trampled dirt I'd made. But the rows had shifted. My knife mark was gone. The path was different. And that's when I noticed something chilling. The corn was closing behind me. The stalks weren't static anymore. They were moving, curling inward like claws. Every time I turned, the world shifted, like I was walking through a maze that built itself as I moved. Then I stepped into a clearing. A perfect circle, 15 feet wide, where the corn had been flattened into a spiral. In the center sat Caleb's bicycle helmet, neatly placed, not tossed, not broken, just waiting. I bent down slowly to pick it up. That's when I heard them, all around me, dozens of whispers, voices overlapping, children, women, men, all repeating, "He's not yours, he's not yours. He's not yours." I turned in a circle. My light began to die, flickering like it was draining. And then, silence. The voices stopped. In that horrible, empty moment, a sound broke through. A boy crying. From somewhere ahead, "Caleb!" I shouted and ran. I didn't think, I didn't plan. I just sprinted into the dark rows, crashing through the corn like a madman. Branches sliced my arms. My knees hit dirt. But I followed the sound, until I hit a wall. Not of corn, of mirror. A full-length antique mirror stood in the middle of the cornfield. Freestanding, clean. Ornate wooden frame, completely out of place. In it, I saw myself. Muddy blood on my arms. Flashlight dying, but the reflection didn't match my movement. It was delayed. Then it smiled, even though I hadn't. And behind my reflection stood Caleb, mouth open, eyes wide, like he was screaming, but I couldn't hear him. Then the mirror shattered, from the inside out. I woke up at the cornfield's edge just as the sun was rising. Paramedics were over me. They said I was found lying face down by the Whitaker's barn. No shoes, my flashlight was melted. My radio cracked. Blevins said he'd been calling me for hours. He never saw me enter the field. They never found Caleb. But that same night, 3 towns over, an officer reported a boy matching his description sitting on a swing in an abandoned playground. When the officer approached, the boy said, "You didn't come for me fast enough," then vanished. I didn't return to work for 6 days after that. The department gave me paid leave. Said I was suffering from heat exhaustion, disorientation, maybe even hallucinations due to sleep deprivation. They had to say something, because I refused to tell them what I really saw, or what I dreamed every single night after. In every dream, I'm back in the cornfield. Same path, same whispers, same antique mirror. Only this time when I look into the glass, it doesn't show me. It shows Caleb aging slowly. First a boy, then a teen, then an adult, and always screaming. On the 7th day, I broke protocol and drove back to the Whitaker property on my own. The family was gone, moved out 2 days after the incident. No warning, no goodbye. Just packed up and left in the middle of the night. Neighbors said they saw them loading up a truck in silence. No one said where they went, but the cornfield was still there. Same rustling leaves, same windless air, same silence. I stood at the edge, heart pounding for a long time. And then I stepped in. This time the rows didn't close behind me. They opened, guided me like I was expected. No whispering, no mirror, no spiral clearing. Only a small wooden sign sticking out of the ground with 4 words carved in it. He's part of us now. And beneath it, a child's tooth, still bloody. Back at the station, I tried to find older files. Looked into missing persons reports going back decades. And I found something terrifying. Every 7 years, a child under the age of 10 has gone missing within a 10-mile radius of Highway 82. Every 7 years never found. Same time of year, always August, always at night, always near a cornfield. One of the reports from 1976 included a hand-drawn map of the property the Whitakers now own. In the margin, someone wrote, "Don't let them wander into the corn." That's where they wait. No explanation. No author name, just that one warning. Weeks later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid, faded, but clear enough. It showed a boy, maybe 8 or 9, standing in the middle of a cornfield. His eyes were white, his mouth open in a scream. He was wearing a red bicycle helmet. And that night, I destroyed every mirror in my house. I boarded up the windows. I disconnected my radio, and still, at exactly 2 a.m., I heard a knock at my back door. Then a whisper through the keyhole, "You didn't come fast enough." The department classified Caleb's case as unresolved, presumed runaway. But I know the truth. There's something in those fields, something ancient, something that feeds. It doesn't take children randomly, it chooses them, and I think it chose me too. Because every year since, on the anniversary of Caleb's disappearance, I wake up to dirt on my feet and corn leaves in my bed. We all joked about it when I started the job. Every small-town department has its legends. In ours, it was cell number 6. The story went like this. Don't lock anyone in that cell. Doesn't matter if they're drunk, high, or violent. Put them anywhere else. But never 6, because sometimes they talk to people that aren't there. Sometimes they scream and beg for a priest. And if you don't move them fast enough, they don't leave that cell the same. When I asked my sergeant if there was any truth to it, he just looked at me and said, "Every time we've used that cell in the last 10 years, someone ends up dead." I laughed. He didn't. I figured it was small-town superstition. The department was old, built in 1903. Only 6 holding cells total. Number 6 was all the way at the end of the hallway. No windows, no light. Always cold. I never had a reason to use it. Until November 12th, 2022. A man came in just past 1 a.m., brought in by deputies who found him walking shirtless down Old Pigeon Road. Frostbite on his arms, rambling nonsense. He kept whispering one thing over and over. "It's wearing his skin. It's wearing his skin." When they tried to get a name, he screamed. Started tearing at his face, bloodied his own mouth with his nails. I was on duty at the front desk when they brought him in. We were full that night. Weekend fights had packed the other cells. So Sergeant Hayes made the call. Stick him in 6. As soon as the door shut behind him, he went dead silent. No more screaming. No banging on the bars. Just silence. I watched him on the camera monitor. He was sitting perfectly still in the corner, knees to his chest, facing the wall. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I leaned closer, and I swear to God, he was mouthing my name. I stared at the monitor, not blinking. The man in cell 6 was mouthing my name, again and again, no sound. Just those lips dry and cracked, forming the syllables like he'd known me for years, but I had never seen him before. I checked his intake file. No name, no ID, fingerprints. Came back with no matches, not local, not state, not federal. The only note from the arresting officers was, suspect refers to himself in third person. Claims he is not the one inside. I asked Hayes if we should call a medic or psychiatrist. He just shook his head. Leave him. We'll transfer him to county mental health first thing in the morning. I didn't sleep that night. At 3:11 a.m. I checked the monitor again. He was gone. The cell was still locked. No open door, no broken latch, just empty. My heart dropped. I called dispatch. No officers had entered the holding area since lockdown. I rushed down to the hallway, past cells 1 through 5, where the other drunks and troublemakers were snoring or moaning. Then I reached 6. The door was shut, locked tight. I turned on the overhead lights. The man was still inside, sitting in the exact same position, only now He had something in his hands. Oh, it was my photo. One I kept in my desk drawer. Me and my sister at my academy graduation. Same frame, same smile. I hadn't even noticed it missing. I opened the cell block door and backed away, nearly falling over my own boots. When I turned around, Sergeant Hayes was behind me. "You opened the door?" he asked. "No," I said. He's got my photo." "How?" Hayes stared past me at the monitor. His face went gray. Then he whispered something I'll never forget. "This is exactly what happened with Ethan Burke." "Who's that?" I asked. He looked at me like I'd asked what a badge was. "Burke was a rookie, 2009, locked a suspect in 6. Same kind of thing, gibberish, silence. Then something personal showed up inside the cell. His mom's scarf. Burke tried to ignore it. Next night he hung himself in the evidence locker. But here's the thing, he left a note. Said, it knows your name. It only needs one piece to get in. I wanted to pull the man out. Get him to a hospital, anywhere. But I made a mistake. I looked into the cell window. He wasn't crouching anymore. He was standing. Right at the glass, face inches from mine. And his eyes were completely black. No iris, no white. Just empty pits. Then his voice came through the intercom, though no one had touched it. I found your fear. I didn't go home the next day. I sat in the archive room until morning, reading every report that mentioned Cell 6. There weren't many, but what I found was worse than I expected. In 1972, a man named Carl Renshaw was arrested for public indecency and violent behavior. Local drunk, nothing unusual. He was placed in Cell 6 because the others were full. 5 hours later, the jailer on duty heard singing over the intercom. He checked the monitor. Carl was standing in the center of the cell, spinning in slow circles, eyes closed, humming a lullaby. Then Carl snapped his own neck by slamming his head into the concrete wall repeatedly. They said he smiled the whole time. Then 1988. A woman named Tina Mayfield, a substitute teacher arrested for suspected DUI, was booked for the night in 6. She was calm, cooperative, but the morning shift found her curled up in the corner, nails torn off, eyes missing from her skull. There were no signs of forced entry, and written in blood on the wall behind her, 6 is open. I couldn't deny it anymore. There was something in that cell. It didn't matter who you were or why you were there. If you stayed too long, it learned you, and then it tried to get out. That night, I returned to the station alone. I had to see for myself. The building was dark, silent. I made my way down the cell block hall. The air was cold, colder than usual, almost wet. When I reached Cell 6, I stopped dead because the door was open. Just wide open, no keys. No override, no mechanical failure, just waiting. I drew my sidearm, shined my flashlight inside. The cell was empty, except for a mirror leaning against the back wall. Old, cracked, but not from the station, not standard issue. It looked like something pulled from a Victorian home. And in that mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw him, the man from last week, the one we locked in here. But now he looked like me, wearing my uniform, smiling. Behind him, the bars were gone. I stepped back, tripped, dropped my light. When I looked up again, there was no mirror, only a shadow in the corner of the cell, not shaped like a person, shaped like a door, and it opened. Just a little, just enough. From the darkness, I heard a voice. I have your name. Now I need your face. I slammed the door shut, locked it, barricaded it, and called in a bomb threat. Got the entire station evacuated. They'll never know why I did it. They'll say I panicked or snapped, but I know what I saw. They're moving the station now, decommissioning the jail block permanently. But Cell 6, they're sealing it in with concrete. No doors, no windows, no access. Still, some nights, when I drive past the old building, my car radio flickers on, and a voice whispers, "You left the door open." That's why I haven't looked in a mirror in weeks. Not since I saw myself smile without smiling. Because deep down, I know that thing in Cell 6, it isn't trapped in there anymore. It's trapped in me. I've been in law enforcement for 15 years. You learn to expect a certain amount of weird calls, especially when you're working in rural territory. But nothing ever prepares you for the ones that don't belong. It happened in the fall of 2021. I was running night patrol through a remote stretch of Highway 24, about 40 miles northeast of Leadville. Rocky terrain, thick trees, no lights for miles. Locals call that area Dead Elk Ridge. I'd always just called it boring until that night. Dispatch came through at 2:17 a.m. Unit 48, be advised. Report of a stalled vehicle at or near mile marker 313. Caller stated a woman flagged him down and appeared injured, requesting assistance. Nothing unusual on the surface, except there is no mile marker 313. Highway 24 in that area ends at 309. After that, there's just a dirt road leading to a mining ghost town that burned down in 1964. I radioed back. You sure that's the location? There's nothing past 309 but forest. Dispatcher came back a moment later. Caller insisted. Said it was marked 300 lane on the post. Woman was wearing a hospital gown, looked confused. Then she disappeared into the trees. I blinked. Hospital gown? I turned my patrol SUV around and started heading east. Even with high beams on, the road felt darker than usual, more narrow. The trees leaned in like they were trying to touch the car. Then, something passed across the road up ahead. Too fast for a person. Too big for a deer. I slowed. No sign of a vehicle. But 100 yards ahead, just barely visible in the high beams, I saw a bent metal post, painted white, marked with mile 313. I stepped out, hand on my sidearm, radio on my shoulder. Dispatch, I've arrived at the reported location. Marker reads 313, but this isn't on our maps. No vehicle in sight, no civilians either. Silence. Then, Unit 48, repeat last. I repeated it. But all I got back was 48, lost, signal. Static swallowed everything. The woods were silent, too silent. Not a single cricket, owl, or breeze. Then I heard it, footsteps. Fast, uneven. Behind me. I turned, weapon drawn. Nothing. Then to my left, louder. I caught a glimpse between the trees. A woman, pale. Thin long black hair, wearing a hospital gown stained dark across the chest. Her back was turned. She was walking deeper into the woods. I called out, "Ma'am, stop! I'm with the State Patrol. Do you need medical assistance?" No reaction. I started after her. That's when she spoke without turning around. "You're not supposed to be here." I should have stopped, called it in, waited for backup. But there was something about her voice, flat, emotionless, like it wasn't really hers, that made my gut twist. So I followed her. The woods were tight. The trees almost touched above me, turning the moonlight into thin white streaks. I kept my light on her back. She never looked at me, never spoke again, just kept walking, until she stopped in front of a clearing. There, nestled in the center, was a car. At first I thought it was part of an old wreck. But then I saw the headlights were still on. The engine was running. A tan Toyota Corolla, early 2000s model, license plate half buried in leaves. I radioed dispatch, no signal. Then I stepped closer and froze. Because I knew that car. I'd seen it before, driven it in fact. It was my sister's, same scratches along the fender. Same cracked bumper sticker with the words, "I brake for ghosts." I hadn't seen it in over 10 years. Because it was destroyed in a collision on I-70, the same crash that killed her. Inside the car was a young woman slumped over the steering wheel. Black hair, hospital gown, the exact same woman I'd followed into the woods. But this time she was covered in blood. Glass shards were embedded in her forehead. And she was smiling. Then I blinked, and the car was empty. I staggered back. My head buzzed like someone struck a tuning fork behind my eyes. Memories flooded me, but not real ones. Visions. My sister wasn't in a crash. She was here bleeding, lost, whispering my name from the back seat. The forest spun around me like the whole place was breathing. Then I saw movement in the trees. Figures, all wearing hospital gowns, dozens of them. Men, women, children, some crawling, some hanging from branches, all watching me. Their mouths moved in unison but made no sound. Then the woman's voice whispered again, this time right behind me. "You should have saved me." I turned. Nothing. Then static in my radio. Finally. Then dispatch's voice, warped and distant. "Unit 48, come in." "Officer down near 313. 313. I screamed into the radio. "I'm here." "I'm not down. I need help." No reply, only these words. "You already died here." I turned and ran. Branches scraped my arms and face, but I didn't stop. The forest didn't look the same anymore. Paths turned to loops, and every tree looked identical. But I kept pushing until I broke out of the tree line and hit the road again. My cruiser was there, still idling. But now, mile marker 313 was gone. When I got back to the road, I collapsed against the cruiser's hood, trying to breathe. My hands were shaking, my skin was cold. But the worst part, the road marker was gone. Just blank woods and old pavement stretching in both directions. Like mile 313 had never been there. I drove back to base in silence. Didn't call it in. Didn't file a report, because what could I say? I followed a dead woman into the woods and saw my sister's car. They'd pull my badge in a heartbeat, but I couldn't stop thinking about the other figures. The ones in the gowns, the silence in the forest, the twisted version of my sister, and the words, "You already died here." So I did some digging, went to the town library, pulled road records, old maps, property surveys from the 1950s to today. Nothing showed a mile marker 313, but I found something else. In 1963, just before the town of Argento burned down, a psychiatric transport vehicle from Ridgeview State Hospital went off the road in that area. The official record says the driver suffered a heart attack. 7 patients escaped. None were recovered. Witnesses at the time claimed they saw people in white walking into the trees. 2 weeks later, Argento caught fire. They said it was electrical. But a journal from a firefighter listed something strange. "We found bodies in the woods, stripped of ID, eyes open." Smiling, the file was sealed shortly after. No follow-up. The next night, I drove the route again. Slower this time. Stopped at marker 309. No sign of the white post I'd seen before. But my cruiser's GPS glitched. Said I was at 313.2 miles. That's when the radio came on. Not dispatch, not static. My sister's voice, soft, crying. "You left me there." I slammed the radio off. Looked in the rearview mirror. And in the back seat, she was sitting there. Smiling, I turned around. No one was there. But the smell of hospital antiseptic filled the car. I never drove that route again. Months passed. But I never escaped the feeling that something followed me out of that forest. My dreams were never the same. I'd wake up to footsteps outside my window, or scratching in the walls. Once I found muddy footprints leading from my front door to my bedroom. Last week I got a letter, no stamp, just placed under my windshield at the grocery store. Inside, a photo, a black and white still of me, standing in the woods. Behind me, dozens of pale figures in gowns. At the bottom, someone had written, "See you again at 313. They never close cases like this, because officially they don't exist. But I'm telling you this now. If you ever find yourself on Highway 24 in the middle of the night, and you see a marker that says 313, do not stop. Do not look into the woods, and for God's sake, don't follow anyone who's already dead.